Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Southwood School District Board of Trustees. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. A recording and/or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. I'll now take roll. Brian?
Present.
Vladimir?
Present.
Jim?
Present.
Stella?
Present.
And I shall be present as well. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We don't see any students.
No student, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. All right. Would any board members like to provide comment on tonight's agenda? Okay, then may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. May I have a second? I'll second. Thank you, Stella. Motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented was made by Vladimir, seconded by Stella. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Closed session report. Direction was given to staff in closed session. No votes were taken. Oh, this is the best part and also the most bittersweet part.
Yes.
Recognition of retiring employees at the conclusion of the 2024-25 school year.
So we have some excellent guests here tonight to celebrate, and Shally, I believe I'm gonna say a little bit and you're gonna give out some gifts and what have you, but when we think about the 11, and I don't believe all 11 are here, folks retiring from the district, we have hundreds of years of service combined. Wow, it's a huge impact to our school district. So if you hear your name, come on up. We're going to start with Mitra. Supported students in our special education programs, both at Springer and more recently at Block, with gentle guidance and endless patience. Her calm presence and steady encouragement made every single child feel seen and valued. Mitra, we will miss you, and we're so happy for you to retire, but really sad for our organization. Thank you so much. And I don't believe Scott is here from Springer. No, we have one of our great campus supervisor, crossing guard, has worked in the district for 19 years and is retiring, Scott Lieberman. Then let's go to, how about the Kathy J. Bob? Kathy J. Bob is often a teacher. We bring other teachers and administrators to go watch teach. She has been with us for 25 years as a teacher, serving students across the district for some time, and then as a classroom teacher at both Santa Rita and more recently at Holman. Without a doubt, my line here is her vibrant energy made learning unforgettable for students. And Kathy, your classroom was really a special place to be. Thank you for everything. Kim is not here tonight. No. Kim Farwell, 20 years at Springer, retiring teacher. Jakey not here tonight. Yeah. Jakey, 7 years of teaching physical education and LASD. Incredible. Thank you.
41 total, right?
Yeah.
41
Yes.
total in public education.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. Next up, we have Julia, who's here hiding in the back there. The science area over at Egan, I will often snake through. So sometimes I think I surprise them because they're doing their stuff and then they like see me because I'll come out of the workroom. Julia has been phenomenal science teacher for 22 years at Egan, teaching mostly seventh grade or only seventh grade science, almost entirely seventh grade science. Her classroom is full of curiosity, a place of wonder, laughter, and lifelong learning. And I think you wanted to share a little something about Mrs. McFarland.
So my daughter is a third year in college, right now Wakefield circular, under Wakefield. She's majoring in biology and genetics research over the summer with her professor. And all of that is because of her experience in your classroom. And that you had recommended her to do, the 2-week internship for Stanford. Tech Trek.
Yeah.
Yes, and you really built up her confidence in science.
Excellent.
And so, when I think back to like, where was that point in time where she was set on her path? That's so much. And with
Andrea not here. Andrea Powers, 28 years at Oak as a special education resource teacher. Devin, you are up. And Devin, 10 years at Oak and at Gardner Bolus as a 6th grade teacher. I would often hear piano coming out of his classroom. And such a creative inspiration for students. Devik is a musician, is a published author, and really has been an exceptional 6th grade teacher. So thoughtful in his craft and working with his colleagues and students. So thank you, Devik. We're really appreciative.
So Devin also taught my daughter. Thank you.
We're gonna miss you, Devik.
Thank you.
so much.
All right, now I have to. Please be Bob, my daughter.
All right. Where to begin with Dina? Dina has been in the district, starting as one of our elementary PE teachers. Yes?
Well, starting in 6th grade.
Oh, sorry, 6th grade,
That's where I started. before I
elementary
had my
PE,
kids.
and then moving to
Yeah,
Egan,
yeah.
which is, she's had such an incredible career. Dina brings passion, leadership, and an amazing dedication to students and staff over at Egan. You have truly inspired generations to move, to lead, and to believe in themselves, Dina. And your loss over at Egan is going to be tremendous. We're gonna miss you. Yes, please say
Oh,
something.
it is. These last were really hard for me because, for those of you who know my child, she's not the gregarious, outgoing, like she's very reticent, very shy, she kind of holds back. And I remember, when we were visiting Egan and we kind of wandered into the locker room just to check it out. And you saw her and you kind of, I don't know if you clocked her, but you saw what kind of kid she was. And then you kept an eye on her for the next 2 years and you knew her by name. And that made a real difference because it was, she had a hard time. She's one of the youngest in her class. She's always been one of the youngest, one of the smallest. And, I think that she would not have felt love and acceptance. It wasn't for you, it wasn't for Miss Cullimore. I'm just crying now because I can't believe you're leaving us, but thank you so much for your service. And congratulations from Wakeshoe also.
Last up, we have Connie, and we're not gonna cry this time, Connie. Connie has been at Egan for 25 years, starting in math, moving to teacher in charge, and for the last 3 years has been an outstanding principal at Egan Junior High School.
Only because of Sandra.
Connie has shaped young mathematical minds, always
Scary.
leading with her heart and vision. And something we will all remember, Connie, is your be here, be you, belong motto. As a principal, you walk and talk that every single day. And that legacy will live on forever, I believe, over at Egan. And I can't thank you enough for all the work you've done for us.
Didn't say anything. I think I had all of them except Stella's kids, so.
And I tried to get you to stay for my second.
I know. Sorry, Stella, and Steve's too, just for the kicks. Thank you. If I'm being recorded, I always love to talk, you know. There are not a better district on the planet, so, thank you for all of you do to support kids and make this a place where kids can be who they are.
So thankful for each of you, truly, truly, truly. Thank you for all the time and dedication you've given to students for so many years in our district. Thank you. Yeah, let's do a picture.
Now, if you wanna go home and do homework.
Can we do a picture? Can we have you come up and come behind the trustees there? Where's the reflector or photographer when you need her?
Oh, well, that's here.
Yeah, come up right behind.
Right over here.
Right here by Jen.
Aw.
Do you want to spread out? Do you want to support the
Yeah,
center?
where do you want us to be?
Yeah,
That'd be nice to get you all like this.
Block the sign there.
A little lopsided.
Okay,
Up there.
Can we get, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Here by Jen.
What do you want to do? All right.
I did bring a check for you today.
Down one. That way we have equal amounts on both sides. Okay. There we go.
There we go. There we go.
Just a little bit more, you're super tall. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like, almost several. Yeah.
Thank you all for your service to our district and public education.
Hi, Jim.
Nice to meet you.
Huh? Yeah, I know.
I didn't even get that. idea.
Doesn't mean it's supposed to.
Always one of the hardest things to do because I'm so happy for retiring, but I feel the loss.
I know.
We hired good people.
We do hire phenomenal people.
Right, so while I swallowed a lump in my throat,
Yeah.
the superintendent's up
Yeah,
here.
it's just a short one today because somehow it's the end of the school year. Wednesday is our last day of school. Carrie might be a little excited. We'll pop it here. I love it.
Wait, we'll have updates, okay.
Yeah. Just a couple of reminders for these next couple of days. If you do have time tomorrow to attend preschool graduation, there's one at 9:30, there's one at 1:15. It is incredible. Miss Lisa and the team have been working with the little ones and it's a really fun event. It's over here in the play area. Come if you can, 9:30 or 1:15. Yeah, it's really something to be seen. I love it. And then, of course, on Wednesday, we have Egan graduation at 11, arrive early. You'll have a little parking cone. And then we'll move over to block at 1 o'clock or for the 1 o'clock graduation. And we haven't really spoken about it at all this year, but just a reminder, we are offering our extended school year program and it starts right away, June 9th, and it runs through July 3rd over at Covington. If you would like to come for a visit, I know a couple of you came last year, but if you would like to come, it runs in the morning until lunchtime. Just let me know and we'll arrange a time. It's great to walk through and see what programs we're offering. Great. That's it.
Thank you. Let's move on to the consent calendar. Would any board members like to provide comment on tonight's consent? Vladimir?
Yeah, I have two questions, no changes. Number 4 there, is that effective, this is for Sandra, is that effectively a sharing agreement between the two of us? And it's just written as us loaning, okay, right.
I believe it is our FTE,
Uh-huh.
and so they are paying a portion of that FTE salary. And the high school, it's their FTE, and we're paying a portion for those specialized services, hearing and what the second one was.
That's the hearing. I think that's the high school one.
Okay.
Okay,
One minute.
yeah, the second question again for
Yes.
Sandra, do we have we requested so this has to do with BP 1431 waivers.
Okay.
Have we requested waivers in the past that you know of?
We have not,
Okay.
this was the one to be able to do a waiver to the CDE around certain compliance issues. We've never needed to ask for a
All right.
waiver,
I don't recall
Yeah.
ever doing it, I just
No.
was curious about that. Okay, thanks, that's all.
but it gives us the ability, should we ever need to.
Any further comments? On the consent calendar? No? Okay, then may I please have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stella. Motion to approve tonight's consent calendar as presented was made by Vladimir and seconded by Stella. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to employee requests to address the board, Los Altos Teachers Association. Alex Schroeder.
I will not be back until August, so I will see you then. I always have to write down what I'm gonna say, because I feel like words are just so incredibly important. What you say is really important. I live and breathe by that in my classroom with all my students every single day, so do the same here. So, here we go. Okay. I'm definitely excited to be here tonight for, my final board meeting of the school year. I'd like to close out the year with a moment of reflection. Our association, which is the Educators of Los Altos, has done amazing things this year. We're the people who bring learning to life for our kids. We support them through their struggles. We celebrate their wins, no matter how big or how small. Our union, our mission goes beyond defending the contract and working to refine it so that the best educators choose to work and stay here. We also look forward. We think critically about what the educator and student experience could be in Los Altos. As a newly elected president, I never assumed I knew how the membership felt. I never relied solely on what I heard from site reps. Instead, I made it a priority to the 3 school sites every week to ask our educators what they cared about and what allows them to be their best and do their best work for kids. The executive board also developed surveys and analyzed data because we believe that listening to our constituents is central to our work. We've worked hard this year to be transparent and to build trust, not just with our members, but also with district management. A strong partnership formed as I work closely with members of the management team. And together we developed a shared vocabulary and a clear protocol for solving issues. I learned that when we interact regularly, decisions are made with greater educator buy-in, and those decisions prove to be more effective for students. Next year, we hope to build a similar relationship with this board. As your constituents, we value your time, your expertise, your willingness to get to know the educators of Los Altos, and we look forward to all continuing a meaningful partnership with every stakeholder, because we all share one common goal, which is giving the children of Los Altos the very best educational experience. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. California School Employees Association, no? Okay. Hi. To provide public comment on an agenda item, speaker cards are to be submitted to the superintendent. Speaker cards will not be accepted once public comment begins. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. For community comments now, this time is reserved for members of the public and employees to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on non-agenda items, except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make a brief comment or ask clarifying questions. We don't have anyone for non-agenda items. I'll close public comment. Moving on to action and discussion items. If anyone wants to provide public comment on this item, please turn in your speaker cards. I've got one. Right, Dr. Bosco.
Yes, I'd like to invite our Director of Communications, Lynette White, up to present our all district parent survey results. Hello, Lynette.
Hi.
So good evening, board president, board members, superintendent, staff, members of the community, whoever's tuning in on YouTube, right? This was a really cool survey to do, and I'm not just saying that because your results were incredible. It's really rare to have a district that has such positive results. So the results that we're gonna go over will include respondents who agreed and also those who were neutral to allow the voices of those people to be heard as well. As you'll be able to see, like I'm saying, the results were overwhelmingly positive. It was super cool to see. So we had a data collection period of 21 days. We were happy to see 587 responses during that time. It's super important feedback from the community that will help shape the LASD priorities for the future. The survey was a collaborative effort between the district, school sites, and LAEF. And so with our next slide, I wanted to kind of show the overall experience. So I like to start high, right? So we're all the way on question 31 here, where 90% of the respondents said that overall their district experience was excellent, very good, or good. I think this is a really strong affirmation of the work LASD is doing, and it highlights the positive impact that you all are having in the community. It's important to recognize that this feedback not only reflects the satisfaction levels, but we, superintendent and Carrie and I, have really dug deep in the comments to also set as a benchmark for goals going forward so that we can really use some of that feedback that we received to frame what goes on next, right, in the district. So respondents by school site. I think this is an awesome visual representation of how many people responded to the survey. You can see it was pretty great participation across the school sites. I do want to thank everyone who helped to get the word out about the survey. And I think this shows that they really did a great job getting the word out. And just thank you to the community for participating and giving their input. And so as we dive in a little deeper to the specifics of the survey results, you see the question up there says, which best describes your impression of communication from the Los Altos School District? You'll see 94% of respondents felt well-informed, adequately informed, or neutral. Even if we don't, I do want to point out, like, even if we don't have the neutral people up there, you're still looking at like an 80-something% positive remark. So it's just really good numbers. It's a positive indicator of the communication efforts going on throughout the district. And so moving on to question 3, which best describes your impression of communication from your child or your children's teacher? Again, 94% of respondents felt really well informed, adequately informed, or neutral. This is really powerful for the teachers, for the principals, for district level to see how engaged the community is in getting that information directly from their child's teacher. I always say the communication from the district is, we think it's really important, but really what they want is the communication from the teachers. So that's most important of all. And we can see they're really responding to that. And then question 4, which best describes your impression of communication from your child or your children's principal? You'll see 95% of the respondents felt well-informed, adequately informed, or neutral. It indicates our efforts in site level communication that are making a big difference. 95%. I mean, these numbers are crazy, you guys. I don't know if you realize that. Like, these numbers are incredible. You should be really proud. So how often do you feel you receive communication from the Los Altos School District? You'll see 86% of the respondents felt they received just the right amount of communication from the school district. This metric is particularly important to me as I guide the site level staff on not only their frequency, but like the content that they're pushing out. So this is a really good metric for me to look at to see, are we doing too much, too little? It seems like they're right in the right spot. So that's great to see. And then question 6, how often do you feel you receive Communication from your child or your children's school. Again, super high numbers across the board in terms of communications received from site level, with 88% of respondents feeling they received just the right amount of communication from their child's school. It's great to see that. I know myself, being a parent of 3 students who would at times receive, 3 teleparents, 3 emails, 3 text messages, like all within the span of 2 minutes, right? Too much information. So to see 88% feel just right, that's pretty cool to see. And then what's the best thing about communications in the Los Altos School District? It's really cool to see the weekly newsletters mentioned there, which I subscribe to all the school weekly newsletters. They have really great, powerful information in there. And most importantly to me was consistency. I wanted to see, when I first started working with the district, I wanted to see, are we doing too much? Is it too many weekly newsletters? But it seems like that's one of their top 5 things that they're really happy with. And again, teacher communication, really important to the community, and just seems to be a top communication theme. And then you'll see the key attributes. It's very well distributed between consistency, clarity, timeliness, completeness, and frequency. Again, frequency being really important to me. And then what's the best thing about communications in the Los Altos School District? Again, the newsletters are winning, which is really great. The consistent schedule, which is something that school communicators like to push a lot with our site level folks, but you guys have it really dialed in here. And then the right amount of information, and also really great visual content. And then I won't read the what parents are saying, but you can see it's just really positive feedback. And then to what extent do you agree with the following statement? The school shows respect for the cultural diversity of the students served. 96% of the respondents feel their school shows respect for cultural diversity. I think that is a really good bar that has been set in terms of equity and inclusivity in the district. I think you see a lot of people really value that, and they're grateful that it exists here. To what extent do you agree with the following statement? The school meets the needs of the students. Again, 91% of respondents strongly agree or agree with the following statement. The school meets the social needs of the students. So just really great. Another question was, how do you agree with the following statement? The school sets high expectations for student achievement. 90% of respondents strongly agree, or are neutral with that statement. And again, taking out the neutral, we were still at about an 80, maybe high 70 range. To what extent do you agree with the following statement? Overall, my child's school performs well academically. I mean, you all get all the data, you know that these schools perform really well academically, and the parents agree. 95% of respondents strongly agree, or are neutral on the performance. To what extent do you agree with the following statement? Staff members at my school respond to parents' questions or concerns. This is such a really important question. You want everyone to feel welcomed at their school sites, and 94% feel just that way. And then to what extent do you agree with the following statement? The staff at my child's school create a welcoming environment for parents. 98% of respondents strongly agree, or are neutral. Again, you can see by the graph, even removing the neutral, we're still super duper high. To what extent do you agree with the following statement? I feel a partnership with my school in my child's education. 93% agree with that statement. And then to what extent do you agree with the following statement? The school effectively communicates with me regarding my child's behavior. 93% agree, strongly agree, or are neutral with that statement. To what extent do you agree with the following statement? The school's report card, which being parents and board members, report cards are always touchy, right? So for this to be 91% of people agreeing that the school's report card is providing a valuable summary of their child's learning and progress, that's great to see. How comfortable do you feel approaching teachers or staff with questions or concerns? 85% of respondents feel very comfortable. And of course, for a question such as this, we're aiming for 100. And so I know that superintendent really is diving deep into what's causing those somewhat comfortable or not comfortable, to see how we can do better for next year. And then how often do you participate in school events or activities? 85% of respondents frequently or sometimes participate. That's super high. I will say, for the most part, when I ask this question in surveys, you're lucky if you get like a 40% response. There's just not the engagement that I'm seeing in the community here, which is great to see. And then types of parent-focused offerings our community would like to see LASD provide in the future. I mean, number one, overall, screen time and technology management, and that's across the board. You know, I love social media. It's what I do a lot of my days for my living. But it's a concern for parents. You definitely want to limit the screen time for your students. So this is definitely going to guide the executive cabinet on how they can offer some great parent workshops for that kind of stuff in the future. And then you see our emerging needs. Additional SEL support was mentioned 21 times. You'll see parent-teacher conferences was mentioned 18 times. So that's something that we want to dig deeper in to see how we can serve those people that see that as more of a need still. And then to what extent do you agree with the following statement? The school has a good public image. Made me so happy. 98% of respondents strongly agree, or are neutral with the following statement. And then we asked people to please share aspects of your experience with the Los Altos School District that influenced your rating. And you can see the top rating is our teachers. You know, just as you said today with the staff members that are retiring, it's really hard to see them go when they're amazing, but you know that you've got some amazing ones coming up too. So our dedicated and caring teacher, definitely the strong community involvement, like I mentioned. Having such community involvement is key to a student's success. Excellent SPED services, IEP services, great mental health resources. Again, with the safe and inclusive learning environment, you saw that in the metrics as well as strong parent-school communication channels. And then, of course, there's going to be areas of improvement, which is where we really dive in because we want to see how we can get better. You want to be 100% in all the categories if you can. And so definitely enhance support for advanced gifted learners. Again, these were all taken directly from comments that the parents put in. So these were the top comments. Improve school meal quality and nutrition. Definitely not a knock on anybody's nutrition services department because this comes up in every single survey. It doesn't matter where your district is, the kids are never happy with the food. But there's always room for improvement, right? And better district-wide communication strategies, which I know superintendent and cabinet are working on. Stronger classroom behavior management, more consistent teaching quality across schools. Enhanced math curriculum and tracking transparency, and then expanded extracurricular enrichment programs. So I think overall, the survey was a great success. I'm glad to see so many people that participated, but also I'm really excited for the areas of improvement because I know that the team is really looking deep into those areas to make the improvements for the students. So that concludes the survey for this year. And thank you all for letting me present that to you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Or
Lynette.
comments?
We'll start clarifying questions from the board before we move to public comment.
Well, I have some questions or comments, but I don't know when they're appropriate.
Well, let's do public comment.
Okay.
Then. My only clarifying question is whether the survey respondents were broken down by race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, English.
No, and so I know you do have an additional survey that is just getting digested. But no, this survey was not broken down like that.
Then I'll save my comments for later.
Okay.
But we do have one card for public comment. Pat Broadkey. Can we get Pat 3 minutes, please? Thanks, Lynette.
Yeah, so it is really great to see that the vast majority of the parents are very happy with their children's education and communication with the school.
Pat, can you just hold on 1 second? I think we're trying to get the timer up.
Technology is always tough. Just use the phone.
Yeah. When in doubt.
Okay, thanks. I hope that this overall success will allow us to focus on helping a parent group that's less satisfied has trouble communicating with teachers and is asking for help, and really follow up to your question, Shelley. Our Latino families, and particularly the socioeconomically disadvantaged Latino families, struggle in achieving a positive connection within our school communities. I know this because over the last 4.5 years, I've spent a major portion of my time helping these families, these students. And last fall, I held a listening session with a small group of parents, and their comments were really disheartening. While the Latino families comprise around 10% of the district overall, if you look at Almond, Santa Rita, Egan, I think they're closer to 20%. And I've heard staff members at these schools express the need for a communication platform that will help them connect. We have very few Spanish speakers on our staff. And I was really glad to hear from Dr. Bosco that there was a plan to roll out such a platform. This is especially important to our Latino families. They differ from the parents of other EL students in important ways. Many of them don't speak English, and their educational backgrounds are frequently very dissimilar from other EL parents. And we need far more than a communication platform to help these students succeed and help the families be connected with the schools, have the information they need from teachers and from staff. And I know that the respective school principals and the district staff are working to define and implement solutions. So yes, let's celebrate our successes. They're awesome. And let's take the time to focus, as you mentioned, on the areas where we can improve and where we do have shortcomings. So, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. All righty, let's move on to board discussion. Who would like to kick us off with comments?
Just a quick comment, all the schools that I know of at least have a very strong sense of community, and so that's really good. I noticed that on a couple of the slides, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 slides, which were different from the other slides in the sense that the strongly agrees didn't exceed the agrees. And so those are obvious areas that we could look at for improvement there. I also was very pleased to see question 19 about report cards. We had a lot of back and forth a couple years ago about standards-based reporting, and it was different. And it's good to see that it's been finally understood, accepted, and valuable. As far as teachers are concerned, I was really glad to see number 1. And it reminds me of a comment that some CEO made that if you take care of the employees, they will automatically take care of their customers, and teachers, parents, and children of their customers. So I'm glad to see that that's happening there. Screen time. Some schools, I don't know whether elementary schools have done this, but I know that definitely some high schools have simply banned screens, cell phones in schools. You have to put your cell phone in a little pocket or something like that. And from what I've heard, that has increased participation, grades, happiness. And I will note that both of our junior highs go to Yosemite, and they're not allowed to have screens there. And kids get over it and have a great time and report that they feel better after the absence of screen. So thank you for your questions and your presentation.
Thank you. Were there any
Yes,
other?
there are more questions.
Okay. She's on fire.
I just had a couple of things. One, I've already expressed to Sandra, so I'm sure in your conversations, but I don't like including neutral in a lot of those answers because I don't think it is an accurate picture of satisfaction. So that's my comment on that. You had mentioned that you were kind of happy with the response rate, and so I personally was not. So I'm just wondering, in your experience and working at other districts, like, is this actually a good, I know we've done other surveys and we've had like similar or lower response rates, so maybe this was a little higher. But like by school site, Egan's the only school that got to 20% of a response rate, and to me, I would like to see more responses. And I don't know how we do that. I think that's always been an issue, but I also did not see any, I'm not saying there wasn't.
Mhm.
I did not see on social media any promotion of this, so I don't know if that would have helped or not helped, or if it,
Next year.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Anyway,
not running the social
Yeah.
media yet, but that's my next year task. I'm not on there yet. But,
but
yeah.
like for other school districts, like this response rate, like cause you mentioned like you were happy with it, so I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
It-
So, two things. So the response rate, I think, is great for the 21 days that we had it.
Okay.
During the time that we had it, because it was testing. It's almost the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's the crazy time right now where you're just asking someone to do yet another thing.
Mhm.
And so maybe that's something that we discuss with cabinet, is the timing of the survey. I think the timing could have a lot to do with your response rate.
Okay,
So I think for the time of year that we chose, I think for the 21 days that we allowed it, I think that was a great response rate, considering the size of your district. So, and I do agree, social media promotion would have been incredible, and so next year you'll see a difference in social media.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
does that answer your
yeah,
questions?
no,
Okay.
yeah, and then the only other question that I have is in the areas for improvement, like something that got mentioned, and I presume those all came from comment, like open fields. But better district-wide communication strategies, and I'm just wondering, like, how do we figure out what is better? Because reportedly 80% or around 80% of those people feel adequately or well informed, so I'm
Yeah.
sensing a disconnect there, and I'm
Yeah.
just,
Definitely, and I think that the disconnect could be the platforms that we're currently using.
Okay.
So I think the platforms that the team is transitioning to, I think that's gonna make a whole huge difference for the next school year.
definitely,
So I think that could be the disconnect,
Okay.
is the platforms that they have now versus the platforms that we'll have in the future.
great,
I'm hoping that that would change that a little bit.
okay,
Yeah,
awesome,
yeah, thank you for your questions though, I appreciate them.
Alex, any questions?
No, not on the slides.
I'll echo Jim's comment that I think for some of these questions, including neutral in sort of the good number is a little bit of a stretch. In the sense of like, for example, and it's an interesting contrast with the sort of support for high achieving students being sort of the number one of the concern. And then sort of question number 11 sort of asks, do you agree the school sets high expectations for student achievement? And, sort of eyeballing it, strongly agree was 25, agree was 45, and then neutral was 20. And I think the text in the slide sort of counts that neutral with the agree, which I think is a little bit, not exactly misleading, but like a little bit over maybe.
Yeah. And so I think we'll
because-
reconsider that question,
Sure.
though, or having that neutral part, I think.
Yeah, so I think just depending on,
Yeah.
or maybe just not lumping it in with the sort of like, with the good stuff, with the clearly good answer, because I think the neutral is a little bit more sometimes I don't know rather than
Yeah.
I'm okay with what's going on. And then I was looking at that one specifically because I just wanted, this is more a comment for my colleagues than for you. But the concern about adequate support for high achieving students is something that I've heard from a lot of constituents over the years about every school in our community, not just our schools. And, obviously our teachers do a tremendous job and do everything they can to sort of provide differential learning, but I think it's an area where we could probably do more work and more thinking about, to what extent can we leverage technology to do these things? To what extent is it just sort of communication or capstone opportunities
Right.
for students who are doing really well? I think that's a definite area of potential growth.
Paula, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to add on, I think maybe we just need to change neutral answer option to something else that's more descriptive, because we don't even know what people really mean when they select that box.
And that's the conversation that we had was, we probably don't wanna offer
Right, yeah, right.
neutral and just, you have to choose something.
And is that what a Likert scale does? Is it forces you to choose something or is it something else?
Is that what a Likert scale does?
Likert scale.
Yeah, that is,
Like
well,
the-
It
like
makes
the-
you choose something.
Yeah, but
it
yeah.
could have neutral as a Likert scale, it doesn't
Okay.
have to.
That's the thing is,
Like a
so
good to bad.
I think your previous surveys have had neutral,
right,
but I think it might be a good idea to do away with that. That way we get a clearer picture of yes, no, maybe, not maybe, yes, no, and no, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
Or
yeah.
no opinion, I guess that's.
But see, no opinion also falls in the neutral category, so we kind of have to just have the buckets of yes and no.
So I have a few questions for you. So thank you for doing this, by the way, and it is really nice to see the high numbers of approval that we have. But what I'm really interested in is the poor, the fair, the no, the nevers,
Yeah.
right? Question 31, their experience in LASD, like Sandra knows how much I love, like, and carry the LASD experience, the LASD student experience, all that stuff. And yet 10% of our folks are not happy with their experience in LASD. And so I'm just wondering, like, how do we dig deeper or follow? I'm sure these are all anonymous and randomized, so you don't know who's
Yeah.
answered that way, but I would really like to know, like, where are we not serving our families and our students, and what can we do to improve that? And I was just gonna say, I like the areas for improvement, and I'd love to see, like, you find out this information, we can add that to the areas for improvement. I think that would be a really great place to have a strategic discussion, like, we can do that. The well-informed and the not well-informed, the breakdown, the reason I asked about the breakdown by SES and language ability is this, yes, Pat and I've had several conversations about how do we reach all of our families and how do we make sure that all of our students have the amazing experience that we want them to have, right? It's an equity issue, right? And so that's why I'm curious, like, where we're falling short on the survey, how do we dig deeper and find out, like, you know, and how do we find out what are the best ways to reach all of our families? And it might just be asking the families themselves or having several focus groups and asking them, how would you like to be communicated with? I don't, right, just, but it really hurts my heart because we are a small school district, right? And so when we have 10% of our kids or our families saying that they're not enjoying their experience here, that's still a large number,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, for
And,
sure.
and we're a school district that I am so proud of us that we know every kid by name, right? We know to follow up with every kid. So I think that, the follow-up to this, to dig a little deeper shouldn't be, I don't think it should be too hard because we know all of our kids. And that's just my thing. And the digging deeper into, the question about lack of respect for cultural diversity. That one is probably the one that shocked me the most. Even if one person said that, that again hurts my heart. And so another thing that I want to dig deeper into.
Oh, yeah, well, I was thinking maybe we could consider offering an option for people to request to be followed up and to provide their contact information if they would like a
That's a
follow-up.
great idea.
or can you? Or can you, and I don't know what the survey tool is, but I know there's survey tools where if you say no, then we ask you more questions to
Oh,
try to
yes.
get
Yeah.
into what you want or what your issue is. I don't know. But yeah, for me, I already know all the good stuff. I wanna understand how to fix the not so good stuff.
I do appreciate you, Janice. Thank
No,
you so
no
much.
problem.
Are there any other questions for Lynette?
Steve,
You almost called him Steve. I had to write down Jim on my thing.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Lynette.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I won't do that.
You're gonna mess me up. Okay, we're moving on to Citizen Advisory Committee for Finance Annual Report. Eric is not here.
Yes, so we want to welcome John Michelson, who's been the chair of the CACF committee for the last year and 2 years. I'm sorry, John. But the committee's been working on their annual report and are going to present tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good to
absolutely.
see everybody. It's been a lovely day outside. Hopefully we've got to enjoy a little bit. Okay, we've tried to focus our report this year on a couple of things that will hopefully work. Exciting report.
All right, we'll just do it.
I'll do it there. Okay, so the agenda very quickly. We focused in this report on two main areas, hopefully forward-looking to be as helpful to you folks as you can. One is enrollment and the second is balancing the budget. Let's go right to enrollment. 2 slides ahead. You have probably seen some of this and thought about some of this, but it's a pretty stark picture. The bars only go up through last year, don't have this year. My understanding is this year, the number is about level. But the prediction is, as best one can tell, the size of the district in terms of student count is going to go down. If it goes down 10%, we're at a 3,000 student level. If it goes down 20%, we're at a 2,800, 2,700 student level. It's materially different than where we are now, and it certainly is materially different than where we've been in the past. Is it the economy? No. Is it immigration policy? No. Is it tariffs? No. It's birth rate. And it's purely a reflection of birth rate declining, not here, throughout California, throughout most of the US. And the chances are, because it's demographics, it's even if the birth rate levels off, turns around, the impact of that will not be felt very quickly. And if in our appendix, if you look, we compare kindergarten and first grade cohorts, the size of those classes in our schools, with the size of our 7th and 8th grade cohorts. And it's close to a 200 student difference. So that's whatever the level of the decline is, that says unless something very surprising happens, we're going to be a smaller district in terms of student count. So, we talked about some of the things, and let's look at the next slide, that could mean. The one that I know you're already well along the way of thinking about is if you want to offer the sorts of educational experience in junior high that we ought to be offering, you're going to need more students. Because we're not going to have enough students in 7th and 8th grade to fill 2 junior highs. So for that reason, and for other reasons I know as well, the notion that we're going to limit junior high to 7th and 8th grade is probably by the wayside. Overhead costs, we have fixed costs, we have fixed facility costs, we have fixed insurance costs. Those things, as the number of students goes down, will increase on a per student basis. And it's going to be more and more difficult to maintain our schools, the number of schools we have below junior high, because our population is shrinking. And there is some point, I'm not an educator, but you will be well advised, there is some point where it is simply, the size of a school is simply too small to have it make educational sense. It will also be too small to make financial sense. So that's coming, and we need to be thinking about that. Let's look at the next slide, which sort of summarizes just what I said. The educational quality is obviously the key. And one way to think about, where we are, we live in a house that was designed and built 75 years ago. We do. And it was designed and built for a student population of up to 6,000. Okay? Our sites, our facilities, where they are relative to where our students are, that's 75 years ago. And some adjustments are gonna need to be made. We don't have enough people to fill that large house that was built 75 years ago. As we think about how to update, how to modernize that house, some decisions are gonna have to be made, you know. We need 20 bedrooms. We probably don't. And those are serious considerations for the community as a whole. But that's from an enrollment standpoint, some of the things we looked at and talked about this year. And the last one is particularly important. How do we maintain quality as we go through this process? Because there are going to be some serious adjustments over the next 5 to 10 years. Okay. Second subject, balancing the budget.
Favorite topic.
Yeah. We've been through an interesting couple of years. COVID. Increased funding because of COVID. That funding is disappearing. The district has been hit by some mandatory requirements of the state, lunch, traditional kindergarten. And, there's been a right-sized process going on, but, it looks like at least for the next year or two, there will be a budget deficit. So how do we best tackle that? And in the process, we've got to think about property tax growth. You know that, I don't know, need to tell you, property tax growth is the main driver of increased revenue for the district. Well, that may not be as positive a thing for the next few years as it's been in some past years. And then reserve levels. Let's go to the next slide. We looked at 4 scenarios for dealing with the budget deficit. And, there's a lesson here that goes back to reserves. We've got, and we're fortunate to have some flexibility in terms of how we deal with the deficit that we're looking at today. And the reason we have that flexibility is because we have reserves. If we didn't have flexibility based on those reserves, we'd be talking about having to take some drastic action, not thought out right sizing, but I don't want to use this image too much, but the chainsaw approach. Reserves mean that we don't have to do that. So we looked at ways in which we could take advantage of our reserve position and deal with what has to be done in terms of balancing the budget. The results of that are there. If we don't reduce expenses, we have an impact of about $28 million over 4 years. And as much as we have reserves, that's not going to cover it. So reductions need to be made. Do we make them all for $7 million worth of it? All of a sudden next year, we can do it. It has some negative impact, and I'm not sure we could practically reduce expenses by $7 million in a single year. We could do it over 2 years. It has an impact on reserves as indicated over 4 years. And we could delay it for several years, and that probably is not a good approach because it has the greatest negative impact on reserves. So very clearly, the notion is that we think is best in these circumstances is to use our reserves, balance the budget, not next year, but by the year after. And that would be also before the next discussion of contract. Let's go to the next slide. Again, we come back to what's most important in terms of delivery of services to the students. How do we stay competitive in terms of faculty and staff who deliver those services? So we assume that scenario where we balance the budget over the next 2 years. But then, you know, what happens with property tax growth? And here are a couple of scenarios we looked at. If property tax growth after next year, which is more or less locked in, is just that 3%, we never get to a balanced budget. So we don't expect that property tax growth is gonna go down that far. That would be a real estate recession. We've had those in the past, but it doesn't look like we're headed for one now. But if that were to start to look like it's happening, that's a big flashing red light in terms of how we move forward from a financial standpoint. On the other hand, if there's a continuation of basically what appears to be the growth for next year at about 4.5%, it's a little bit nicer scenario. We could afford annual increases across the board in salary and still have a balanced budget, which again is pretty important. And while reserves drop, they would still be at a relatively healthy 16%, which is not bad. And then a third scenario we looked at, we have an immediate recession, but we recover quickly from that. We, again, because of the reserve, we can survive that sort of thing financially. So the message here, if we look at the next slide, is we can balance the budget in a reasonable amount of time. If property tax stabilizes, we'll be in pretty good shape. And one of the things that we would recommend in those circumstances is you look again at your reserve policy. We're seeing right now how important reserves are. I don't know about you, I can't predict the future, something bad might happen. But maintaining healthy reserves is gonna give some cushion for the future. So if we see over the next couple of years, property tax growth stabilizing, give that some serious thought, and that will help further down the line. Quick summary, and without repeating, these are again all things that we're concerned in terms of maintaining quality. Thank you. What question? What thoughts do you?
Thank you, John. Are there any clarifying questions before we go to public comment? No? And are there any requests for public comment? Okay. Then are there any questions for John? Go, please.
Well, thank you, John, so much for coming to present. And I thought that your suggestion about looking at the reserve levels and thinking about a 15% target was really interesting. And I would like to request that be added to a future board agenda. And just, you know, on, like, I was thinking about it, like 15% is actually about, it's a little less than, I think, 2 months worth of expenses. And it does seem like, certainly in my personal life, I would like to at least be able to cover 2 months worth of my expenses, you know, if something should go wrong.
We're not gonna talk about your personal habits, but you know, our reserve policy has been good. It's been a lower level than some other districts have had. So it's, to me, the numbers suggest an opportunity to strengthen where we are financially.
Thank you for your suggestion about adding that to a future agenda item. And I'd like to do a little bit of a deeper dive in, our budget and our reserve policy.
We're raising our hands.
Oh, you're raising
No,
your
they're
hand.
raising their-
See.
I agree with Sally. I think the suggestion of raising our reserve rate, deserves a hard look. Our reserve levels for basic aid districts are outliers. A lot of districts that are basic aid have reserve levels of 25, 30%. I think the 8 to 10 target was set. I think a couple of things have changed since the 8 to 10 target was set. I think, the cost of special education have continued to rise, as Eric would say if he were here, and so our sort of unexpected expenses level is a lot higher there. We get students who move in and cost 6 figures for 6 years, that are very difficult to budget for. And then the other thing that we've shifted to since Eric has been here is if our reserves levels are a little higher, it allows us to not have to do short-term borrowing to make up for the chunky property taxes. So we get property tax revenue a couple of times a year. When I first started on the board, we would do revenue anticipation notes every year, which cost us money. Now, with higher reserve levels, we can just shift cash around, which saves us money in the long run. So I definitely agree we should look at that. I just wanted to offer a couple other thoughts on the enrollment forecasts. I got a little bit into the weeds of the county's site, and I think there are reasons to think that the 22% drop is not what's going to happen to our particular district. Because of COVID, that 5-year projection goes all the way back to 2018, which is a time when the charter school was still growing its enrollment. So we were losing kids there in a way that I think gets built into that projection in a way that's no longer true. And then as I understood the details of how they generated those projections, they were also doing kinder and first grade cohort estimates based on county-wide data, which again, I think like the enrollment drops county-wide have been more severe than we've seen in our particular area. So I think, to me, that's kind of why, you know, if you look at the last few years where we're tabulated, it's kind of been flat. I think we're kind of flat again. I think we probably will be down a little bit, but I think we'll be closer to flat than 22% down over the projection period.
22% may be high,
Yeah,
but it's gonna go down.
sure.
And our data are in the appendix, and again, the comparisons of our.
Yeah, no,
First
right,
grade.
and that's very well taken, that our graduating cohorts are larger than our incoming cohorts, for sure. But the other thing I wanted to sort of talk about is, when I've been thinking about this, because we don't get extra revenue for extra kids, right? So if we weren't down by 1,000 kids, we would arguably be in a tremendous amount of trouble right now, right? We would probably not have been able to offer the raises that we've been able to offer, because we would have 50 more teachers that we'd have to spread that money across. So I'm actually kind of more inclined not to try to optimize our structure for the number of kids that we have, because when the trends turn around and we start growing again, we need to be able to absorb more kids without necessarily having to come up with that extra money right away, right? Like as we lose kids, if we maintain our schools, maintain our cohorts, our class sizes get smaller, which I think everybody enjoys, frankly. But then that also gives us the buffer for if things turn around, we start getting more kids, then we won't have to hire more teachers for a certain delayed period. So that's kind of the way I think
Yeah,
about some of our local dynamics.
Theoretically, we're at a huge advantage as a basic aid district, because we don't get revenue based on headcount. And if you haven't noticed, Los Altos is a pretty nice place to live, which generates some pretty good property taxes. So theoretically, we have a very solid property tax base. It may not grow as quickly as it has in the past, but it's still going on. And if we only have to educate a smaller number of children, there should be a way, not just to maintain quality, but maybe even improve the quality.
Right.
So to me, maybe there's an opportunity here with a lower student population.
Sure.
The notion of an overly large 75-year-old house is because we've got facilities built out for 6,000 students. That was done in the sixties. Okay, we don't have 6,000 students. We're not, even if it increases, we're not gonna have 6,000. So teacher hiring is one thing, but there's a facility.
Sure,
of
sure,
stuff.
sure.
Got it.
And I mean, we did sell off 4 of those bedrooms back in
Yeah.
the 90s. But I take your point. I don't need to belabor it. Yeah, I think that's the.
So
common side.
there's some interesting dynamics, and again, I think there's some opportunity to take advantage of some.
Edmund?
I'd like to go back to your recommendation slide. Of the enrollment. And so the first recommendation is, evaluate the transition from junior high to address the impacts of declining enrollment. It's, the enrollment doesn't change. Because we're taking the kids from the elementary school and moving them to the middle school.
Yeah.
So it's not, that's not gonna affect enrollment.
No.
And so I don't think that that is a reasonable, I don't think looking at that as a way of addressing declining enrollment is accurate. It may be a curriculum issue. And that, you know, that's a definite possibility, but I don't think it's has anything to do with.
Well, maybe we haven't defined stated the point as clearly as we should. If you just stick with the number of 7th and 8th graders who are coming down the line, there are not enough of those to justify the teaching resources that you're gonna need to offer them the same kind of electives and experience.
Agreed.
That,
Okay. So the other thing that is those kids that are moving, 6th grade kids that are moving to the junior high are gonna depopulate the elementary schools. And some of our elementary schools are in great danger of falling below an undefined limit so far. We don't know what that limit is of reasonable attendance to the schools there. That's,
yes,
just
agreed.
okay. If you look at, if you go to balance the budget, can we stay competitive in compensation? And you're talking about possible changes that are coming down the road. One thing that I would really like the CACF to do is to articulate some triggers. If this happens, we need to address this. And maybe it's if enrollment drops below 2,500, we have a problem, we need to address it. So a couple of these triggers, I would really like to understand.
We've done that in the past. We had this cute little red, green, yellow light
Yeah.
system, but yes,
Lastly, I have a whole list of things that you could do.
please.
Oh, basically, they're all has to do with scenarios that affect our budget. And I can go into them with you, or I can talk to Curtis or whatever.
That's our usual closing, which is please, if there are things you would like us to do, please tell us what those are.
The general concern I have is that changes in federal revenue or changes in income state revenue are going to trickle down in some cases, because there'll be budget maneuvers to move money around. Next year, we're already looking at deferrals. No, we're not looking at deferrals, but other districts are looking at deferrals. So there just won't be enough cash to go around. So those kind of trickle down effects is sort of like in the back of my mind as a concern. The last thing I wanted to comment on was Eric's presentation. I can find it. Has commented there that if we became a LCFF district, our revenue would drop from 61 million down to 38 million.
It's a big hit.
It's a big hit, yeah. And I would also like to comment that are 68. That's what I said, $61 million. Versus the 38 is a huge inequity in the system that would benefit from.
Well, there, as I'm sure you've heard from whether it's Eric or Sandra, I mean, a number of districts locally have gone basic aid. And converted to basic aid. Whatever reason.
I mean, not use basic aid, all of those basic aid.
Yeah.
Patino is also.
Yeah.
What's that?
They just
Yeah.
flipped
I
this
think they
year.
just flipped in.
Yeah, that's all. Okay.
Any other questions for John? John, thank you so much.
All right,
Always.
good seeing you.
Appreciate it, John. Alrighty, we're gonna
See you
move
in
on.
August, John.
Thank you so much.
Gonna move on to our public hearing, our 2025-26 local control and accountability plan. If anyone would like to provide public comment on this item, please submit a speaker card. The public hearing is now open.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. It's really my pleasure to bring forward the district's local control accountability plan. I was before you on March 3rd with our mid-year update to the plan. So much of this you've seen before, but this evening is a brief update. We always have to start with the LASD student experience. You've been seeing this in our school presentations, and it really centers the work that we're doing for those 3,500 students in our classrooms every day. And we know that our academic growth is deeply connected to our social emotional well-being for our students. And so we talk about push and care, so that we're pushing and caring for our students, but also our staff members that are serving our students so well. Next slide, please. And so as part of our academic program, we also have skills, habits, and mindsets that we want all of our students to develop. And so it's been really fun for me, is the last 3 years this has been like a North Star for us. The LASD student experience, the portrait of the learner. So seeing this through with you all makes me feel so very proud. And as we think about our actions in our strategic plan, it's all gauged around these 4 strategic priorities of thriving students, empowered educators, a strong infrastructure, and engaged families. So all of the actions that are in our plan reflects those critical parts of the system for supporting our students. So with that, you have a document at your table of 25-26 strategic actions aligned with those different priorities. And just hearing the survey results tonight and some of the comments and some of the areas of continuous improvement that you all identified. I feel really good about the work that we're doing to support those advanced learners, to support our students who are struggling, whether it's through our deeper learning initiative with the wheel or our integrated systems of support, the shared leadership systems that we've been building in the district, as well as the work we're doing to engage our families. So this evening, in addition to the LCAP update, that 89-page document that you have attached that has required metrics, required goals, required activities, we've brought forward a draft 25-26 strategic action document, as well, if you move forward. Just an update for each of those goal areas. And then finally, this evening, we also have, thank you, an update on our local indicators. So those are how the district is doing in terms of qualified educators, the percent of fully credentialed educators, the professional learning that we are providing, as well as materials, curricular instruction materials and resources, our facilities, and then parent engagement in our facilities. So in my time in the district, we've passed a parcel tax, a bond measure, all with the great support of our community. And we've also raised additional funds with LAIF and PTA. So I just feel really proud of the work that we're doing in these areas to support all 4 of our strategic priorities. As we think about our LCAP and the goals and things around strategic communication, Lynette was talking about tonight, yes, the results were positive, but just like you, we're very interested in where we can grow and where we can improve. So we are looking for a different platform for communications. Mountain View Los Altos is using Parent Square, so that's a platform that we are investing in, as well as updating and refreshing our website. So that would be the area for strategic communication. Family involvement. Yes, our families are participating on our school campuses, they're volunteering, but what type of education and opportunities can we provide for them? Training that they might need. AI is a topic that we know families have lots of interest in. How are we supporting students safely? And then how are we using those technologies to advance learning? So with the local indicator report, I'm happy to tell you we're meeting standards, as you could probably guess, in each of these areas. 89% of our teachers have clear credentials. Some are missing our authorization, so we're working to support them with that process. All of our students have instructional materials that are aligned to state standards, and according to our fit reports that were conducted at the sites, all of our facilities are in good repair. Now we know we need to modernize and update our sites. Good repair for our students. Also, we are meeting standards with that parent family engagement. There's opportunities for students to participate, whether it's in surveys or on-site and volunteer opportunities. But we know we can do better with streamlining communication, as well as supporting our families around improving our chronic absenteeism of specific students missing school. So next steps here are that we'd like to develop parent education series. We'd like to implement a new communication platform. We'd like to support our teachers with translation between home and school. That will be via our new platform next school year. The Parent Square app actually has translation services for all of our top languages, so teachers can communicate and parents can communicate in real time using translated services. And then we've just administered a survey, a multilingual survey in our top 5 languages for our families of multilingual learners, and we're analyzing those results right now. I can tell you just at first blush, they're equally as positive to the general results you saw tonight, but do have some specific comments about how we can improve connections, home to school connections with those parents. Our local climate survey from our students is something that we're really proud about. So we have our students participate in a survey a few times through year, actually, because we want to ask them about their experience as students. And so some of the questions are, this teacher believes I can learn. I have a good friend in the class. I feel safe in this class. And so these results show us that students are not just attending school, but they're experiencing that connection, that care, that push, and belief. And that's really the foundation for everything else we hope to build for our students. So as we look ahead to 25, 26.
That's out of 5, right?
Out of 5, yeah.
Out of 5, yeah, thank you. Yeah, not out of 10. Out of 10. Out of
Yeah,
5.
that's a whole different survey result.
Not out of 10.
Just checking.
You know, we want to continue to improve the experience that all of our students have, and that our families have. And so our commitment to deeper learning, to the wheel, to well-being and strong relationships with families, educators, and the community will remain at the center of our work. So we thank you for your time. Happy to take any questions on the actions that you might have or the documents. I know there are quite a few.
I have one. So for family involvement,
Yeah,
you
it's
talk about the parent.
One second. We'll do clarifying questions and then go to public comment and then do discussion.
This is a clarifying question. So for the parent education opportunities, is that the same or different from what I've seen about like the parent university?
Yep, same.
Same, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any clarifying questions? Just really quickly, Carrie, when will we see the results of the survey that you're talking about with our parents who are EL parents?
We're sharing at DLAC tomorrow morning.
Oh,
so we can certainly share with the board as well.
Is there any public comment? If there are no requests for public comment, the public hearing is now closed. Board discussion, any further?
I have something.
Yes,
Carrie.
please.
So, just today, one of the things I do for no particular reason is I go to GitHub to get source code, and there's always a README file in there. You know, when I went to this one particular thing, it was all in German. And it turns out that on my browser, I can click on that page and say, translate this page, and boom, the entire page was translated. Now, I don't know if it was translated accurately, but it was complete sentences that made sense. So translation really should not be a barrier to us getting stuff out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was impressed. So,
We actually used a tool to translate those surveys into the top 5 languages.
yeah.
And then we had parents read them for accuracy.
Yeah, well, so one of the things you can do is
Supported with
translate to that language and then translate back into English and see how well it makes sense. Okay.
Oh, well, to follow up on my clarifying question, I also wanted to comment about the parent education opportunities.
Mhm.
I mean, based on the draft that I've seen, I think it's really great, and I was wondering if we could get a presentation for the board sometime next year. Because it also kind of addresses some of those concerns that we heard earlier from Pat Bodke.
Our plan is over summer, so we have, I don't remember, several hundred families who qualify for ELOP. Which are really the families we're targeting much of our parent education around and some broad topics for all people. But we're going to have, one of our bilingual staff members actually reach out to every single family over summer, to ask what topics may be of interest to you, make sure that they understand how to enroll in ELOP and what's available at their school. We had a series of questions. Am I missing anything else? I can't remember, but they're gonna get a little personal touch over summer, which will be great. So yes, once that's refined, we'll bring it back in the early fall, mid-fall for you.
Thank you.
Since parents were something very different that we're doing, what is planned for like educating the parents, walking them through it, like just, you can't just tell them about this new app, now download it.
Yes, we're planning what we're calling a slow roll, so we can be really intentional and thoughtful about the rollout plan. We actually have been meeting with IT department at Mountain View Los Altos to learn how did it go for them, what did they learn from their rollout, what went well, what didn't go well. But the website, the app itself is so user friendly, and it's in so many districts that their support and training is really, really good. But we're working through all of that right now. We're anticipating rolling to parents probably in January.
Okay. Can we have a board presentation on for parents for? Sure. Yeah, it's also, it's not, it is important for us to know, but it's more important that here, if there's a parent who's listening online, the one or the two, but it's just another way of getting that information out to our community.
Just one other comment, I don't know that there's anything we need to do about it, but I'm bothered by the fact that we have so little public comment.
And nobody online,
Well, yeah, that too.
yes.
I have a comment that I don't wanna,
Spit it out.
Just say it.
I am very happy about this survey results. I mean, I think that it's a more detailed survey that the students participate in, but it's been on my mind all year just because over last summer, some information was released about another school where students did not feel this way. And so I've been very concerned about our students feeling this way, and I'm very happy to see that that is the case.
At a school in our district or a different district?
It's a school in our community.
Oh. No, it is very heartening to see
Yeah.
that this is.
No, this is great.
Jim, can I ask you, you said school or district?
School.
All right.
Any other questions?
Well, I
Oh, sorry.
suppose there is technically both.
It is what it is. Are
Thank
there
you.
any other questions for, Karen? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. Also, I want to just thank, we had over 200 individuals participate in input sessions with us around LCAP, and we wrote it last year in the strategic plan. This year we had, as you saw, many people participate in the survey, but then we had staff meetings at all 9 schools and met with staff too and got their input. So we appreciate our teachers and classified staff who provide input in addition to our parents and community. But thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. This whole 360-degree review. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we have another public hearing. 2025-26 district budget pursuant to Ed Code 42103, 42127, and 52062. And ending balances in excess of the minimum recommended reserves. If anyone would like to provide public comment on this item, please submit a speaker card. The public hearing is now open. are you doing?
There. You
I'm
start.
there, I got this.
Well, I'm ready. Can you guys hear me? Mic check.
Hi, Eric.
It's hard to hear, but I'm gonna get going here. Good evening tonight, Board of Trustees. We're excited to present our public hearing, and it's a two-step process. We'll be coming back next Monday night, the 9th, to ask for to have the budget adopted. I'll go to the next slide. And it's a two-step process. Marcy, able to advance the next slide? There we go. We have to adopt our budget by June 30th, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit before. We also have to hold a public hearing that our budget will support all the goals of the LCAP, which it does. Next slide. And just want to kind of give the board a very brief update on the May revise. Not a lot of changes that really anticipated that really are going to affect Los Altos. Obviously, the stock market volatility in response to the federal policy changes can impact our state revenue. California was recently claimed that we are now the fourth largest. We were the fifth. I think we're now the fourth largest economy of GDP. We're also noticing that property and liability insurances are going to be increasing in the future with a lot of the wildfires that are happening all over the state. There's also going to be some pressure for the state to potentially backfill any loss of federal dollars. And so we're going to be mindful of those items. And then COLA was reduced just a slight hair down to 2.30. And we do not get a lot of state funding, but we do get a little bit of cost of living adjustments for mandated block grant, special education, and child nutrition. Next slide. And I wanted to highlight all the different federal funds and categories that we received, because there has been a lot of talk about some of the changes in Washington, if there's going to be this dramatic shift and cut in federal programs. The biggest chunk of change that you can see is the special education IDA entitlement. And we know, which I'll come into a later slide, but it's a very small fraction of the funding that we need to make special education whole. So just a little over 900,000, and then we get all the different title funds that we direct for targeted instruction. And these title funds, we use our LCFF funds, our property taxes, but then we also use these title funds to support all the EL strategies for our second language learners, immigrants, low income. And we do that through many of the items that Carrie mentioned earlier in the LCAP. Next item. General fund revenue assumptions. You heard John Michelson do a nice job talking about property tax growth. It is a #1 driver of our district's revenue. We will not know the final property tax numbers until August when the rolls are closed. So we feel very confident that our property taxes will be a little bit above 4.75, but at adoption, based on information we know right now, we're going to adopt our budget with 4.75% growth. The parcel tax gets a COLA of 4% just on the Measure A funds. We're going to be $10.3 million. And then we highlighted LAFE this year of 2.7 because they are very confident they can meet an extra $200,000 to help fund some of the programs, which is really great. We really appreciate LAFE and all they do for our kids. And all these other categories that you've seen many times in our budget. The other state funding we get is the Education and Protection Account. We'll be bringing a resolution to the next meeting to talk about that on the 9th. That ends in 2030, and that's about $655,000. It's $200 per ADA. So if that goes away, many districts will be clamoring, trying to find to replace some of those funds. We have our ELOP revenue, and in the SACS forms this year is the first year, actually, there's a line item in the SACS forms that says ELOP and Prop 28. It's in the restricted side of revenue, of other state revenue. The last few years, that was all rolled up in one category called other state revenue. And we try to provide you with a pretty detailed description of all the revenues that we're receiving in your narrative and assumptions handout that was part of your board packet. And then due to the charter school is $10.6 million. The charter school is the LCFF funded students, and they get that COLA. So as the number of students is about a little bit over 11,000 per student. And then our special education entitlement, which I mentioned earlier, that's this bottom number here is actually the excess property taxes called ERAF, and that's restricted LCFF revenue that we get, and that is used all for special ed funding. Next slide. The charter school, Our budget is going to assume the charter school enrollment will remain relatively flat, and only 10% of the students are coming from out of the district. We also assume that our property tax monies will be revised in the May revise, which is it. So from this year to next year, it's an extra 462,000 of our transfer. So the total in lieu transfer at budget adoption will be 10.6. BCS also is projected to receive 625,000 of the parcel tax revenue, and that's their share of the Measure A of that was approved in 2023. And the portable rentals for BCS for this current year is about 865,000, but as just like with inflation, the leases and these will be going up, so we'll be adjusting our budget accordingly to account for the extra lease revenue from mobile modular, or at least some of these portables are leased from. Next slide. This is a pie chart we really like to show. And every year it changes a little bit. Some years, depending on how much state funds we get, the parcel tax might be 12 or 13%, but we try to break it down of the biggest sources of revenue. And you can see property taxes is the #1 driver of our revenue for the district. The foundation is 3%, and the parcel tax, if you add all these locals up, it's over 90%. Which is 93% local in nature. So we really are, and I know Vladimir made a comment earlier, but if we did lose our LCFF status, it would be a loss of over $21 million. So being in that basic aid status is definitely beneficial to our district. Next slide. This is just a 3-year summary of our property taxes, and you can see in 23-24, the prior year growth was 8.54. Last year, we're going to probably end the year at 5.66 for this estimated actuals, and then we're going to be adopting at 4.75. And so we are seeing growth, but not like the 7 and 8s that we saw earlier in 22 and 23. Next slide. Our general fund assumptions, we have step and column, and the 8.5% salary increase for the LATA, CSEA, and confidential group, and then a step and column and a 7% for management, which is mostly the certificated managers. Next year, we're adding 2 additional TK classes, and then we'll have to have the TK aides, which are 6 hours a day, so it's a 1.5 positions. Increased health and welfare benefits is about 10% per year. So we're going to be budgeting for 344,000. We do not know what the healthcare rates will be because we don't get CalPERS rates until mid-July. So we're going to do 10%, and then we'll bring this number back to the board at first interim and adjust accordingly. OPEB is one we want something to point out, which I point out in the narrative assumptions. It's about $1.2 million a year for our retiree benefits, and this is called other post-employment benefits, and that's for our retirees. So as our healthcare benefits go up, our OPEB obligations go up as well. And so for the retirees, that's money that we have to budget for every year for the healthcare increases for our retirees. And then we break down the statutory benefits. The top 2 ones is just for the pensions for CalPERS and CalSTRS. And then on the bottom is all the statutories, which includes workers' compensation and so on. Next slide. Cafeteria fund, we like to highlight cafeteria fund. We did hear a little that some of the parents aren't happy with the meals. I was over at Almond, and the parents are actually very happy and very understanding that the district is trying our best to do. We have had some good success with the program this last year, and I want to acknowledge Jason and Elizabetta for help us manage the food services program. We're anticipating next year that our contribution from the general fund is going to go down a little bit. From 1 million down to 848,000. So it's a decrease of our general fund contribution. Most of the increases or salaries is because of the raises for CSEA. Next slide. Special education is a very large part of our budget. It's about 20% of our budget in total. And we have to fund it from 70%. So we're really only funded about 30% from federal, local sources and state. You can see the jump in salaries. It's a pretty significant increase. Some of that, though, is because we're going to be using less contractors and hire more speech teachers. So we're going to see an increase in salaries, but then a decrease in the all other, which is contracted services. So instead of hiring outside contractors for speech services, we're hoping to be able to capture some increased services for our students. But you can see the total expenses from special ed going from 17.3 to 17.6. And then the general fund contribution has gone up a little bit too. And then once we close the books in August, September, we can bring you some final numbers. Next slide. Our utilities is something we're always watching. This year, our estimated actuals is $2.7 million in utilities. This year at adoption, we're going to adopt 3 million. That's about a $250,000 increase in utility cost. And obviously PG&E is our biggest one. And we're very fortunate. We still are under the net metering for PG&E. So we do get a significant benefit for having those photovoltaic parking shade structures out in our parking lots. If we did not have those, our energy bills would probably be at least 2.5 to 3 million for PG&E. So we're very fortunate to have that power purchasing agreement that we approved several years ago. Next slide. So not only do we have to talk about the current year, but we also have to look at the multi-year budget. And the multi-year out years, we're going to be adopting 4.75 for this current year, and the next 2 out years, 4 and 3. Our parcel tax, you'll see a slight increase, and that's due to COLA. LAIF feels confident they can reach a fundraising goal of the 2.7. And then you can see all the other state funding that we get. And then as COLA goes up, that in lieu transfer to the charter school will also be increasing in the out years. Next slide. Step and column in the multi-year expenditures. And this was talked about a little bit earlier in the meeting, but you can see when we adopt the budget in June, and then when we adopt to the following year, you can see a pretty significant increase from 22, 23. And we have been doing the work. I know John Michelson mentioned about, we have been doing that right size staffing to really match our lowering enrollment. And then, yes, as a basic aid school district, you do not want to be overstaffed because that comes at the cost of salary. So we've been able to afford some really significant raises in our compensation for our labor groups, which they very much deserve. But to do that, we've been able to reduce staffing to help afford these raises and still maintain good reserves. And then health and welfare, all groups increase about 10% annually. And then most of our books and supplies, contracted services that are in our budget, we budget conservatively about 3 to 5% per year on those items. Next slide. CalSTRS rates. I wanted to point this out. If you look in our budget book, which you'll get on next Monday night's meetings, there's an analysis about CalPERS and CalSTRS rates, and you can see over the years it is a significant part of our budget. So this is the employer contribution. The employees, when they get their paychecks, they pay their portion, but the employer, we pay a huge portion. So you can see 26 cents of every dollar the district is contributing for CalPERS, and then it's going to be going up in the next years. The CalSTRS rates for teachers has been relatively flat for the last several years. But if you look at our budget, $13.2 million of our budget, almost 15% of our budget is just for retirement pension contributions. So that's a significant amount. And so when you start having, if you're overstaffed, not only paying for the salaries, but you're also paying for the retirement and pension plans as well. So we'd be much higher than this if we weren't doing that right size effort staff that everybody's been working very hard on. Next slide. And then our multi-year expenditures, you can see is our expenditures are going up, and the expenditures are going up on step and column and our health and welfare increases, supplies and other. And then the other financing uses, that's the transfer out to the cafeteria fund. And you can see it's about a 10% increase for supplies, food, and salaries as well in the out years. And then the next slide is for multi-year projections. Our beginning balance is starting at 19.2. And that's what we were talking about earlier, and Brian mentioned about cash. It is important to have those reserves that we don't have to borrow and do a tax revenue anticipation note. We've been able to we didn't do it last year. We're feeling we can have a positive fund balance and borrow inter-fund borrowing and not have to go borrow out in the open market. So this year for 25-26, we're projecting a $2.2 million deficit, and then 3.3 and then 3.7 in the out years. Fund 17 is our special basic aid reserve, and that money has grown over the last several years because of interest. And you can see our reserves that we're projecting out in the next couple of years. We do have some time to make some more reductions and then build some room for to be looking at our budget. But good news, we're able to adopt our budget. And it's hard to say, yes, how can you adopt your budget and be positive with the negative fund balances and deficit? But we do have the reserves to meet our minimum requirement. And I want to thank Carrie Bosco, my LCAP partner. And also want to acknowledge Elizabeth Bays, who's our fiscal director. She's on the call tonight. She works tremendous amount of hours, making sure we're accurate and thorough. And I really want to acknowledge her and all of her hard work, and really the whole team. We do have a great team, the business department, but we work well with all the departments because we're all in this together. And I really want to thank everyone for all their help getting our budget ready. And we'll be excited to bring you back and be asking for adoption at the next meeting. And then the next slide talks about some future concerns. Obviously, property tax is growing, but not at the rate it was several years ago. We are worried about stock market volatility and how that might impact STRS and PERS, because they do invest in the stock market and mutual funds. And then when those things aren't going so great, you have to be mindful of that. We are worried about future TK staffing impact, because not only just for the teachers and staff, but also for facilities and equipment and supplies. We are worried about immigration and tariffs and its impact on Measure EE. The cost of steel could go up, and all these other construction materials. Rising utility costs, healthcare, and then, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of old portables that are at our classrooms. This summer, we'll be removing 2 of them from Alman, and so we're going to continue doing that work as part of our Measure E projects. And then the next slide is really just a quick summary of the key deadlines. We'll be bringing this back to you to adopt the budget next Monday night. And then the last slide is really just thanking everyone again, and we'll be here to answer any questions for you.
Great, thank you so much, Eric. All right, do we have any, are there any clarifying questions, Eric, before we take public comment? Are there any requests for public comment? Great, since we have no public comment, public hearing is now closed. Any further board discussion, questions for Eric? Okay, I don't have any questions either. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you.
It's very thorough, no questions.
The narrative was really helpful too at answering any questions we might have had.
Good
job.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Eric, I'm wondering if you want to stay for number 5.
Yes, and I wasn't sure if anybody from Waldorf was able to attend tonight. Yes.
Yeah,
Good.
we have folks who've been patiently waiting in the corner for our
I gave them a
last
warning that it was late on the agenda, so I thank them for their patience. Yeah, so tonight we're asking the board to approve, it's an action item, it's a resolution, 2425-17. The district has been a partner with Waldorf School since 1995, and we started leasing part of the old Eastbrook School site, which is out off of Mora Drive, which is up behind the Los Altos Country Club in the Loyola area. And they've been great partners. They've been paying us lease revenue over the years. They've been in charge of maintaining the property themselves. And so tonight, part of that agreement, that long-term agreement, was that they can exercise their option if they want to take ownership of that property. And they let us know last year. And so we've been working over time of actually when to do that. That the deed and transfer is, and I apologize, it's a lot of documents to transfer a property. So I apologize for the number of items, but we want to be thorough. We had legal counsel advise us on this to make sure we're doing it properly. So there'll be a resolution tonight we'll be asking you to approve. It's going to be approving resolution 2425-17 to authorize the conveyance of the former Eastbrook School site to the Waldorf School.
Thank you very much, Eric. Are there any, anyone want to submit a speaker card for public comment? All right, are there any questions from the board? Are there any other requests for public comment? Oh. Alrighty. Would any board members like to provide further comment on this agenda item?
For $1, we're selling the entire site?
30 years.
I know.
Any other comments?
Thank you. Or isn't it that way?
All right, in that case, may I please have a motion to approve resolution number 24/25-17,
So moved.
Waldorf School and School
sorry.
Transfer.
I'm sorry. Finish.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vladimir. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stella. All right, any further board discussion? Motion to approve resolution number 24/25-17, Waldorf School of the Peninsula Transfer of Deed was made by Vladimir and seconded by Stella. As this is a resolution, we'll take a roll call vote. Jim, see I wrote your name.
Aye.
Stella?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Aye.
Brian?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, hanging in there with us. All right, on to board and administration comments. Carrie, would you like to kick us off?
Just one comment, Eric here would want to be thanking him for all this work on the, not just the district budget, but the LCAP. We are in each other's office every day about this on the phone, every night, just trying to work it through, and he's always so positive about it. It's kind of helpful when I get sad.
Oh.
It's the template, we're through issues that
Bye.
have been raised by counties. I just wanted to thank him and his team for all of their hard work in the partnership. It's really fun.
Yeah, thanks again, Carrie. I agree. It's nice having an LCAP partner. We can commiserate on the lovely forms from DTS that we like to deal with. But I do want to acknowledge Elizabeth again and really thank her for all of her help. She's been a great asset to our team business, and just want to thank everybody for working so collaboratively. So thanks again.
Eric, are there any other comments you want to make? Eric, still there?
No, let's say it.
Okay, I'm sorry, look at me, sorry.
Uh,
I'll have her airplane.
I'll just add, I would love to thank both Eric and Carrie. We're finishing up our third year together as a team, and I'm just so grateful and really appreciate the strengths that each of you bring to us. Thank you.
It's a great team and it really shows. Thank you. Stella?
Yes, I attended the Oak Open House on the 22nd. I can't remember how many weeks ago. I also held the second school ambassadors meeting, which was very productive. And I attended an AAPI Heroes celebration that was hosted by Margaret Abikoka. I was not recognized at it. I just attended, sorry, to clarify.
It's okay. Jim? He did not have to sit here.
I participated in Viking Showcase last week, which
good.
I always tell people that they should go and do just because it's interesting and it's a good insight into junior high. And I don't always do it, but I did it this year and it was every bit as good as I thought it would be. I was very encouraged by what the students shared and how they shared it. And it's just good to see our students doing so well.
Thank you. Fine.
I don't have anything to report, except that we will not be able to attend the budget presentation.
Yeah.
That occurs
Yes, I
right
saw that
before
on my-
graduation.
Yeah.
So I was sort of like disappointed about that, but there's nothing we can do about it.
There's some virtual ones. Like I went to a virtual one. I think there's another tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, I'll look it up.
I saw that in my calendar. Brian?
I volunteered with Science Olympiad Santa Rita. And then also got to do Viking Showcase, which was great. Probably my most impressive kids in the 10 years I've been doing. So it was nice to see. And then I also attended the LATA/CSCA end of year picnic. It's always
Oh, yeah, I went to that.
Thank you for doing that. This time of year is so busy that I was out last week and you missed so much. Yeah, so thank you to all of you for like getting out there and doing all this stuff. It's like a marathon at this time of the year. And with that, I would like to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Fine.